Level 1. $10,000 invested. You don't feel like an investor. You feel like someone pretending. $10,000 in a brokerage account earning 3 to 4% in dividends gives you $300 to $400 per year. That's $25 to $33 per month. It doesn't replace your rent. It doesn't cover groceries. It barely covers your internet bill. But something shifts. For the first time, money arrives without asking for your time. You didn't clock in for it. You didn't negotiate for it. You didn't trade hours for it. It just appeared. The amount is small. The signal is not. This is the first proof that income and effort are not permanently married. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. Level 2, $50,000 invested. At a 4% dividend yield, that's $2,000 per year, about $166 per month. It covers utilities, or groceries, or your car insurance. Not your life, but a piece of it. You still go to work Monday morning. But now, one category of your life is funded by capital instead of labor. Psychologically, that matters, because dependency starts shrinking. You are no longer 100% reliant on your employer. You are 95% reliant. That 5% reduction feels small, but control compounds just like money does. Level 3, $100,000 invested. At 4%, you're looking at $4,000 per year, roughly $333 per month. This is where people start fantasizing. Could I live somewhere cheaper? What if I cut expenses? But let's stay realistic. $333 per month doesn't buy freedom. It buys breathing room. It means one unexpected bill doesn't spiral into debt. It means you can lose your job and not panic on day one. The dividend isn't replacing your paycheck. It's replacing fear. And that's more powerful than people admit. Now the math becomes clearer. If you want $40,000 per year in dividend income at 4%, you need $1 million invested. That's the clean equation. $40,000 divided by 0.04 equals $1 million. The number feels massive, because it is. But the math isn't emotional, it's mechanical. The real question isn't whether $1 million sounds big. The real question is what kind of life $40,000 actually buys you. Level 4, $250,000 invested. At 4%, that's $10,000 per year, about $833 per month. Now things start getting interesting. Your rent in a small city? Covered. Your mortgage payment? Partially offset. You don't quit your job, but you become difficult to control. Because you can walk away from a bad boss. You can reject unpaid overtime. You can say no to humiliation. Not because you're rich. Because your survival doesn't fully depend on obedience anymore. Dividend income doesn't just buy lifestyle. It buys leverage. Level 5, $500,000 invested. At 4%, that's $20,000 per year. About $1,666 per month. Now you're funding a minimalist life in certain cities. If you reduce expenses, if you avoid lifestyle inflation, if you design intentionally, you still might work. But now work becomes optional in phases. You can switch to part-time, start a small business, take unpaid sabbaticals. $500,000 invested doesn't scream luxury. It whispers flexibility. And flexibility is a form of quiet power. Level 6, $750,000 invested. At 4%, that's $30,000 per year. $2,500 per month. Now you're approaching real independence in lower cost areas. Not glamorous independence. Not yacht independence. Sustainable independence. You can pay rent. Cover food. Handle insurance. Live modestly. You won't feel wealthy. but you will feel calm, and calm is rare. At this level, your employer senses something different about you. You negotiate differently. You carry yourself differently, because desperation is gone. And desperation is what most systems depend on. Level 7, $1 million invested. The milestone. At 4%, that's $40,000 per year, $3,333 per month. Now you can design a modest middle-class life in many parts of the world. Not extravagant, not flashy, stable. You don't wake up for survival. You wake up for choice. That's the difference. But here's what nobody tells you. Living off dividends isn't about the number. It's about expenses. If you spend $70,000 per year, $1 million won't free you. If you spend $35,000 per year, it might. The market doesn't care what you feel you deserve. It cares about percentages. Now let's complicate it, because real life is never a clean 4%. Dividends fluctuate. Companies cut payouts. Markets crash. If you want safety, you don't aim for 4%. You aim for 3%. At 3%, to generate $40,000 per year, you need $1.33 million invested. Now the threshold moves. Security always costs more than optimism. Level 8, $2 million invested. At 3 to 4%, that's $60,000 to $80,000 per year. Now you're in a different psychological category. You're not just surviving, you're insulated. You can live comfortably in most cities without employment. You can travel, upgrade housing modestly, fund hobbies. But something strange happens. When you stop needing work, work starts chasing you differently. Opportunities appear. People treat you with subtle respect. Banks offer you better products because you are no longer a risk. You are capital. Level 9, $5 million invested. At 4%, that's $200,000 per year. Now you're not asking how much you need to live. You're deciding how visible you want to be. You can live almost anywhere, in comfort, without touching principal. You don't negotiate salary. You negotiate influence. At this level, dividends aren't survival income. They're strategic cash flow. And institutions treat strategic cash flow very differently than wages. But let's rewind, because most people aren't starting at $1 million. They're starting at 0. And the real shift isn't at $1 million. It's at the first $100,000. At 4%, that's $4,000 per year. Not enough to live, enough to feel the machine working. Once you see compounding in motion, the impossible becomes procedural. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Living off dividends requires one of two things: a very large portfolio or a very small lifestyle. There is no shortcut around that. You can chase high-yield stocks at 8 to 10%. But high yield often means high risk. Dividends can be cut overnight. Companies fail. If you design your life around fragile income, your freedom becomes fragile too. Stability requires durability. Durability requires scale. Now consider inflation. If you need $40,000 today, in 20 years, you may need $70,000 for the same life, which means your portfolio must grow, not just distribute. True dividend independence isn't about extracting everything. It's about balancing growth and payout. Because if you consume all yield, your future shrinks. This is why many wealthy investors don't actually live off dividends. They live off total return. They withdraw 3 to 4% annually, regardless of dividend yield. It's more flexible, more tax efficient, more stable. But psychologically, dividends feel safer, because they feel like salary replacement. Money arriving without selling assets feels cleaner, even if mathematically it's the same. So how much do you really need? It depends on 3 numbers: Your annual expenses, your target withdrawal rate, your margin of safety. If you spend $50,000 per year and want a 3% withdrawal rate, you need $1.67 million invested. If you spend $30,000 per year at 4%, you need $750,000. Freedom is math, not motivation. But math is only half the story. Because the moment you can live off dividends, your identity changes. You stop being a worker who invests. You become an investor who can work. That reversal is subtle, but permanent. Some people hit $1 million and never quit. Because the real benefit isn't unemployment. It's independence. It's knowing you don't have to tolerate nonsense. It's knowing layoffs are inconveniences, not disasters. It's knowing time belongs to you. Right now, someone is earning $70,000 per year. They believe they need $70,000 in dividends to escape. But maybe they don't. Maybe they only need $40,000. Because work becomes optional long before lifestyle upgrades do. And optional work feels different than mandatory work. Here's the final shift. Living off dividends isn't about escaping work. It's about escaping fear. Fear of job loss, fear of recession, fear of medical bills, fear of saying no. When your portfolio produces your baseline survival, your decisions become cleaner. You don't chase money. You choose alignment. At $10,000 invested, you feel hopeful. At $100,000, you feel momentum. At $500,000, you feel leverage. At $1 million, you feel optional. At $2 million, you feel insulated. At $5 million, you feel strategic. Each tier changes how the world interacts with you. But the world doesn't change. Your dependency does. So how much do you need invested to live off dividends? Enough that your expenses are covered by percentages instead of paychecks. That number isn't universal. It's personal. But the formula is simple. Annual expenses divided by dividend yield equals required portfolio. The equation is cold. The freedom is not. Because the day your portfolio covers your life, you stop asking for permission. And that's when dividends stop being income and start being power.